almost here. Who will you vote for? Hi, I'm Jay Dellinger. Coming up, you're about to watch exclusive coverage of candidates running for office in the November 5th election. Each candidate is interviewed by Wayne Howard asking those tough questions you just want to know. So watch, listen, learn, and you decide. Who will you vote for on November 5th? So don't touch that mouse. Stay tuned. I'm Jay Dellinger, the Lincoln Herald.
We're talking today with Devin Ryan, who is a candidate and currently councilman from Ward 1 in the election coming up in November. And Devin, what do you consider to be the biggest single issue facing the city of Lincolnton this time?
Selling water, without a doubt. That should be the one issue that keeps fellow council people and citizens up at night. We've got to sell water. Our demand is down so much. Presently, to date, we're down almost $250,000 in the first quarter of this fiscal year. To help control the cost, we have got to sell water. That's the number one issue by far that we have right now.
The county commissioners, of course, at their meeting following the time that the city council rejected the contracts that had been presented, they approved those contracts for water sales, water purchase on their part from the city, the 911 and animal control services, and the city fire department covering certain areas of the county nearby. The county commissioners approved each of those contracts individually. Is there any reason why the city council could not at this time just go ahead and accept the water contract that the county has already approved and signed?
Did not sit on that committee that brought those together. That was Mayor Gillian, Councilman Hovis, and Jeff Emery that sit on that committee. It was my understanding at the time that yes, they approved them individually, but they would be taken as a package. With that logic, there is no reason, if they're standalone, which wasn't how it was described at the city council, but if they were standalone, then I don't know that there is a reason why it could not be approved as it stood at. I think the water rate approved in that contract was $1.25 per 1,000 gallons. So there is no real reason. I don't know the legality of it if the city council would come back and accept that agreement that we had sent to them, because we didn't approve it then, nor did we really take action on it then. You know, if you remember, what we simply done was say, as a whole, as a 3-0 vote, that this needs more work, this needs more attention, and send it back to them saying we need to look at it further. So I don't think there is a reason why we could not do that. I would wonder if the county commissioners would view it that way, if it would really be binding, since the nature, I think, of the agreement originally was as a total package, which has changed quite a bit in the way this thing's evolved, as you know, because now as we sit, those original contracts from the city standpoint are completely off the table. The ones that Larry Makovis, Mayor Gillian, and Jeff Emery brought to the city council are now completely off the table anyhow. We have since went back and created new contracts and approved the language there. So that's the only thing we've really ever taken approval of, and that was led by, you know, Larry Makovis and Carol Havner getting those new contracts brought together. We have taken a vote on them and sent those to county commissioners as well. This past week, they should have been sent over there. So at the end of the day, there's lots of contracts and stuff laid out on the table. What we really need to do is get everybody together and say, look, we need to sell water, you need water. We need animal control, you got the people. If you look at this whole thing from a business, I think we can hammer out, this is what makes sense. You know, my thought's always been, we need to get together in a room, we need a dry erase board and a marker. There's too much of this too much politics get involved in it, too much, he said, she said. It's not that complicated. I agree. We're city residents, we're county residents too. We need what's best for everybody. And what's best is we need to sell water and they need it. We need animal control and they got it. We can come to an agreement that everybody can agree on. We just got to get to that point, sit down at the table and hammer it out.
Well, talking about animal control and 911, which was in one of the contracts, the county, of course, is suggesting in the original contract presentation that the city would increase its contribution to those services very sizably, up to nearly $500,000 eventually. That being the case, some city residents have complained that this amounts to double taxation, that they're residents of the county and therefore should be entitled to the exact same services, 911, animal control, etc., as any other county resident. Just because they live in the city, they shouldn't have to pay extra in city taxes for what amounts to a county service.
And trust me, I pay those same taxes every day and every year as well. And I agree. Here's the problem on the legal side. We trust our city attorney, we trust our city manager, and what we've been told, and I even had an email this past week, legally, they can charge us whatever they want to charge us. Legally, they can do it. We don't
but they can't force you to pay a certain amount. They can send you a bill for it. And in fact, if you're saying, here's what we want you to do, we want you to dispatch the city police department or the city fire department. But in terms of 911 services, they're bound by federal law for accepting federal monies that they have to provide 911 services to all residents of their jurisdictional area, which is all of Lincoln County, and the city is part of Lincoln County.
I agree. And I'll go back to the fact of what I said. I agree. That $460-some thousand that was in the original contracts that was not approved by City Council and which are not currently on the table. So we need to make sure that's crystal clear here. That stuff's gone. As far as the city of Lincolnton is concerned, that $460,000 increase, as we just referred to, is no longer on the table. So, but if we're going to talk about it, the thing that's important there to understand, from what I've been told, and I can only trust the information that I'm given, is legally they can charge us what they want to. We never took action on those contracts. I was always of the mindset of what I was told, that they can charge us whatever they want to. And if they can do that, we might as well sell them water. Because under those original contracts, which are no longer on the table, if you go look at that, and I asked that night to our city manager who's sitting to my right, I said, as I look at this though, in a 5-year period, if the county lives up to the max here on their water potential, we would increase our revenue by over, it was right at, I think in 5 years, right at $100,000. So, to me, there was a business cycle there of, yeah, you're paying here, but the net revenue, the net bottom dollar was still going to be to our favor. But I'll go back to saying those original contracts, shy of the fire situation, which has been passed and handled, are off the table.
There have been rumors that if the Republican Party takes control of the city by not only your winning re-election, the mayor being re-elected, which of course he's likely to be since he's unopposed, and also Jay Thomas being elected, that Jeff Emery is gone. How would you respond to that?
I've learned in local government, local politics, you got to be careful with rumors because you hear a lot of things. The only way I would respond to that is, as a city council person, I expect everybody to do their job. And as long as people are doing their job, then there's no issues. I'm all for accountability, but I'm also all for being fair. I think we take good care of our employees. I think our employees of the city of Lincoln are our most valuable asset. I think you can look back at the record over the last 4 years. You can look at this year right now. Every city employee's got a raise every city employee is getting a Christmas bonus. You can look back over the last 4 years and see how that's happened. I think we take great pride in taking care of our city employees. We've maintained a high level of insurance. We've maintained a lot of things when in the business sector, a lot of that stuff's fell off the table. We've maintained it and been proud to maintain it, and will continue to maintain it, contrary to some of these rumors that you referred to. But to answer your direct question, as long as an employee is doing their job and doing what they're paid to do, and they do it well, I'm glad to have anybody that we got.
At a recent city council meeting, when the garbage collection fee was eventually totally rescinded,
Yes.
the only negative vote on that was from Councilman Dr. Les Cloninger.
Yes.
And his reasoning was that he was concerned about where the money would come from to take care of the loss of that income from the $5 at that time collection fee.
Okay.
About $270,000, I believe it was supposed
It's
to
a little shy of that. We were right below $500,000 with the whole trash tax that they had approved originally. So it's somewhere shy of $250,000, correct?
You made the statement about at that time that the shortage could be made up by what you termed low-hanging fruit.
Absolutely.
Can you elaborate on some of the low-hanging fruit? What areas would you make cuts in?
We're fixing to spend with bond money, well, not with bond money, with grant money, over $600,000 on an intersection we don't own, out here at 27150 Jones Boulevard. I think the city's cost of that, I believe, is somewhere around $160,000 to $200,000. That'd be the number one thing that would come off the table immediately. I think we can still look at purchasing. I think we can look at having a purchasing agent type person. I think there's way too much overlap in city government on how we handle things, the way we buy equipment, the way we buy vehicles. I mean, there's small things. I think we can get a whole lot tighter on the use of overtime. I think that the mayor and I have worked really hard, or at least expressed our interest over time, that hey, this is a number that we can, we can control, and those numbers still get way out there. I think there's just so many opportunities, and without a budget sitting in front of me to go through it as I have done and as I have brought to council, there's stuff with various subscriptions. Like I said, there's these intersections. There's a prime example would have been the recycling. We went from 18 years and never bid out our recycling contract. We bid it out and realized that, hey, all of a sudden we can do this in-house. And doing it in-house, we've saved the citizens $175,000 a year. That was a good example of that low-hanging fruit that we could have gotten. And we did that without adding an employee, without adding a piece of equipment, without adding a trash can. We were able to do that. So I think as you look through the budget, there's a lot of that sort of stuff that's very manageable to come up with that amount of money. But the number one first thing I would cut would be this intersection that we don't own.
We've been talking with Devin Ryan, who is the councilman from Ward 1 in Lincolnton, and of course is running for re-election in the November election. Thank you, Mr. Ryan.
Thank you.
We're here today with Dr. Martin Eady, who of course is running for Lincolnton City Council. Marty, why did you decide to run for City Council?
Wayne, I've lived in this city all my life, and I loved it. The city nurtured me as I was growing up. My children had a great life growing up here, and I just want to try to give back to the city that's been such a positive influence on my childhood and my professional career. I see a chance to do some good things for city serving on city council. We have a lot of budgetary challenges facing us, and I believe I can bring an experience in budgetary management that will allow us to make positive growth in this city, even while addressing the challenges we have.
What do you consider to be the biggest single issue in with city government, for city government? Well,
I think the largest single issue on the short term is our budgetary situation. We've lost at least $200,000 due to the flood damage. It could be much worse than that if the insurance company doesn't pay everything they're supposed to. We obligated $200,000 out of the fund balance to do away with the garbage collection fee. We took $156,000 away from buying recycling bins. That's a one-time expenditure, so we'll have to find another $156,000 to add to the $200,000 to help with the garbage collection costs. So those issues right there reduce our fund balance significantly, and I think will present some major challenges for us in the short term. I think long-term, the city is in dire need of a long-term strategic plan, which involves our citizens in giving us input into budgetary priorities to help the council make decisions down the road. And I think that we should use the League of Municipalities or some other civic organization to help us facilitate a long-range plan for the city.
The Republican Party has made a big issue out of the garbage collection fee, which of course no longer exists. It was voted down by the council. That garbage collection fee has been one of their primary campaign issues, if you will, although it's no longer around. You, I believe, had said that you were also opposed to the garbage collection fee. Are you not concerned that the lack of the funds from that fee will keep the city from doing other things it needs to do?
I'm very concerned about that. You have to understand the garbage collection fee was a strategy to raise money. The city has lost 13% of its value during the last property tax reevaluation, and a recession has cost the city almost $200,000 in sales tax revenue. So they were looking for a way to find revenues without raising the property taxes. So the garbage fee has been repealed. It was repealed using one-time money. So next year we've got to find a way to pay those fees. I feel very comfortable with a strong, detailed analysis of the budget that we can find ways to generate money to support that basic service. I am against fees for basic services like sanitation, safety, and infrastructure. I don't think you ought to charge a fee. That's what we pay property tax for. So I think we need to analyze the budget, make sure our basic services are funded appropriately and that they operate efficiently. And then other activities the city funds, those need to then be prioritized and funded as we can afford.
One of the things that was raised as a way to make up for the loss of money from the fees for garbage collection, one of the speakers who spoke on several occasions at the city council meetings talked about the benefits package that is provided for city workers. How do you feel about that?
Well, the benefits package has two components that have been criticized. One is the Christmas bonus, and I looked at that Christmas bonus. I separated the line workers away from administrators and supervisors to look at that, because those line workers often are out on Christmas night putting up power lines in the ice so that our families can be warm and they can enjoy Christmas. So I looked at that, and that Christmas bonus amounts to $25 a week for those folks. And so I'm not sure that that's something that has to be done away with. That was part of the package that was there when they were employed. They don't make a lot of money to start with. And so that I'm not sure we need to attack those folks' Christmas bonus. We may need to modify it a little bit. But administrators and supervisors, since that bonus is a proportion of salary, the higher your salary, the higher your Christmas bonus. And I think we can look at that, provide some caps and make some significant savings. The other portion of that benefit package is the health insurance plan. The city realized several years ago that they were unable to sustain that plan, and so all new employees do not have that benefit. So out of 160 employees, only about 67, I believe, have the full package of health coverage for their spouse and their children, but there are multiple subsets of that need to be addressed. But it's going to be hard to have a one-size-fits-all solution because of the way different employees have different access to different parts of that. But the economy has changed. Full health insurance is not a standard in the world anymore, and I think we're going to have to look at that very closely. Once again, some of our employees, that package is 25% of their monthly salary. That'd be hard to give up 25% of your monthly salary and still be able to pay all your other bills. So I think we've got to be cognizant of what we pay as we're looking at the benefits that go with that pay. Most people don't realize that, with the exception of police officers, our city doesn't provide a match for a 401k program. So we've cut corners at some other places in order to have those benefits, but I do think everything, because of the tight budget, everything's got to be on the table. I think we've got to be careful that we don't make decisions that hurt us in the long run.
Speaking of the police department, the police station a while back was a very hot topic around City Hall and City Council meetings. Seems now to have been put on the back burner.
Yes, I think the availability of revenues has been a challenge for moving forward with that. However, by not expanding the police station, we've now had to rent another facility. So I'm not sure how much money we're going to save in the long run. That rent could be used to pay toward financing of the renovation of the station. But you know, oftentimes problems don't go away. We just bury them for political expediency. I think our whole infrastructure program needs to be examined as part of a strategic plan. A city our size can't solve its problems every time out of 1 year budget. You've got to have a long-range plan, so those things are expensive you can chip away at and make some headway. So I think, you know, infrastructure review is going to be a crucial part of making sure our budget is appropriate down the road.
Another thing that's been talked about at recent city council meetings, there have been those who have spoken against the expense to the city of some of the events that occur. Hog Happening in particular has drawn some criticism, as well as some of the other events, and the big issue seems to be the cost to the city.
Well, first of all, you know, the quality of life in the community is determined to a great extent by the cultural, social, and historical assets that a community has. And I think we have to be sure that we make sure it's fun to live in Lincolnton. Those costs, though, don't seem to be contained. I think there needs to be a budget for each of those events that we fund intentionally rather than by default. I think we need to tell those groups, here's our budget for cleanup, so that we can control those expenditures rather than suffer through having to meet those expenditures.
I think everybody knows that you served for several years as superintendent of schools in Lincoln County. Do you think that experience is beneficial to you as you run for city council?
I think so. It gives me a unique perspective. I spent 15 years as superintendent of schools dealing with budgets, budget shortfalls, public personnel policies, public policy in general, laws, strategic planning. I think that gives me a set of experiences that will help city council handle the challenges we're facing right now and hopefully make positive decisions for our city's future.
And one final note is the question about water. The city, of course, passed a water referendum some years ago to update and facilitate greater capacity at the water plant. Now we don't need all the water that we have, and there's been a question of selling water to the county, and it doesn't seem to be an agreement at this point.
Well, I think it's human nature for an organization to try to get the best benefit that they can out of a deal. I think what we have to do is work with our commissioners to help them understand that in some cases it's better to have a contract that's mutually beneficial. A strong, viable city is good for our county, and a strong, viable county is good for our city. The contract that the commissioners presented seemed to be loaded a little bit in their direction, taking advantage of our need to sell water. We need to reinforce with them that there are 10,000 county residents that pay county taxes that live in the city limits, and that it is mutually beneficial for us to have a water contract that supports all of the county, not just the east and the west, but also including those of us who live in the city. I think we've got a pretty good relationship with the commissioners, and I think it's just a matter of talking things out and trying to get the right perspective on the table.
Speaking of the relationship with the county over some of the contract proposals, water was one of those. Of course, there was also one involving the fire department, the Lincolnton Fire Department, covering some areas of the county. That has been recently approved by the city council. Of course, was also approved by the county commission. We use water, and the other is the animal control services and 911. that the county has asked the city to up its contribution to nearly $500,000 compared to the $50,000 it currently contributes each year. There have been those who have complained that that, to them, seems to be double taxation. They already pay for those services.
Well, that actually is double taxation because we do pay for those services. If you live on the other side of the South Fork River, you get animal control service and 911 out of your county taxes. If you live on the city side of the river, they're expecting us to pay the full cost of each phone call for 911 and animal control after the 5-year escalation period that takes it up to $417,000. That document says very clearly that your county taxes, if you live inside the city limits, do not go for 911 and animal control services. And I think that's where we need to work on this idea of being mutually beneficial to each other. The city could certainly help with 911 costs, but city residents who are also county residents are paying the same county taxes as people in Vail and Denver and the other portions in the east. There's a large population in the east. I don't think living in the city should be an excuse to deny city residents the same benefits that other county residents get.
Our guest today has been Dr. Martin Eady, who is running for Lincolnton City Council in the November election. We're here today with Lincolnton Mayor John Gilliland, and Mayor, you have the enviable position of running unopposed.
Yes, sir.
Nonetheless, we felt that the voters should have the opportunity, since they still have the opportunity to vote for you, that they should have the opportunity to know how you stand on various and sundry issues. What do you think is the biggest concern for the mayor and city council of Lincolnton at this point?
I think the biggest concern for the city council and the mayor is moving forward. I do have some concerns about infrastructure here in the city. You know, we have the second oldest city west of Charlotte here in Lincoln. So I do have some concerns that you see water leaks around, and that issue to me seems to be an issue that we need to be prepared for moving forward. Maybe possibly being proactive in repairing certain parts of the city or infrastructure in parts of the city that on a scheduled basis versus repairing as they break. So that's probably one of the biggest issues. Now, other than the one I always speak of that I know you know the answer to is water. Water that's the thing that keeps me up at night. We have to sell water. It is not optional. We've got to sell more water.
The county, of course, has already approved a water contract with the city. Do you think there is any possibility that the city will, in turn, accept that water contract and proceed?
I don't know that that's going to happen the way things stand right now. As you're aware, we have put a committee together and put another proposal back in front of the county commissioners, and I do know that they're looking at that proposal, and I know that all things are still on the table right now. So at this point, we don't know where that's going. But here's what I do know. We have to sell water. And if the county is the most likely customer for us at the immediate, as we sit today, and I think that is the perfect customer to move forward.
Well, of course, when the city council discussed potential contracts with the county a couple of months ago, one of the objections raised by one of the members of the council was the fact that all three of those contracts were being considered together. But when the county commissioners discussed those contracts at their next meeting, they approved them individually. So in reality, there would not appear to be any reason why the city could not go ahead and accept that water contract and then negotiate on the others.
Well, and that is a good point. That could be done, I guess. Technically, we could sign off on one of them. To carry forward, it would be as simple as another motion back before the county commissioners, because they were very clear that it was an all or nothing deal.
But they have already signed a contract, and according to the terms of that contract, which they approved and signed, it would require a 5-year notice to change that contract or to do away with that contract.
Well, that could be accurate right there, Wayne. But I do believe that it would be as simple as taking it back before the county commissioners and changing that decision. And
one of the other things discussed as a contract at that time was the 911 services and the animal control services. The county wants the city to increase its contribution to those services. That would eventually amount to nearly $500,000 per year from the city to the county for 911 and animal control. It's been said that that is considered to be by many double taxation, because residents of the city of Lincolnton already pay county taxes. Shouldn't they in turn be entitled to equal county services with anybody who lives outside the city?
And I think that is a pretty good argument. I really do. I never have really been able to understand completely where people in the city would be charged more. Unfortunately, back in the 70s, that decision was already made to charge the citizens of Lincoln for that 911 service. And what this does include, it would be an increase for them if this moves forward. Now, the thing that you don't hear a lot of folks talking about, Wayne, is that this deal, the county can go up on 911 and animal control at any time they want to. They don't have to have an agreement at all with us. They just can go up on their bills. So that is key in all of this. From my perspective, and what I think the group's perspective is if the 911 and animal control is going to increase, why not sell water at the same time? And I think that was our total goal, that if that can go up with or without our consent, then let's sell water.
Now, you say they can increase it at any time, but there's no obligation. Technically, they can't obligate the city to pay a certain amount. They have no authority to levy additional taxes in the city. The mayor and city council do.
Yes, you're absolutely right. But what they can do is they can change what they charge the city for 911 and animal control at any time. What they charge us now is X, and they can go up on that amount at any time.
But wouldn't they still have to, if they, for example, refused to dispatch city police or city fire department, they would still have to, under federal law, to provide 911 services to the residents of Lincoln County, which would include the residents of the city of Lincolnton. They wouldn't necessarily have to dispatch the city police. They might want to dispatch the sheriff's department, but they would still be responsible for 911 services to the county, which includes Lincolnton.
And I have been told that is accurate. Now, you've got other issues there that, as you mentioned, you would have to dispatch the county, or and I have heard that scenario put before me, and I do not know the answer to that. But I do think that it would be an uncomfortable situation for the 911 to pick up and not dispatch anybody in the city. And I think what you have told me before is that they would be required by law to dispatch someone inside the city.
There have been rumors, there are always rumors, and innuendos, etc. But there have been
every day of my life I hear on that.
There have been rumors that if the Republicans take control of the city council, which currently you and Devin Ryan as a city councilman are on the minority side in the council meetings, and there are 3 Democrats on the city council, but of course one of those Democrats is not running this year, and that if it has been rumored that if Jay Thomas and Devin Ryan win and you win re-election, which certainly is expected, you're unopposed, then one of the first actions on the part of that new Republican majority city council would be the firing of city manager Jeff Emery. Would you address that?
I would, and if that were the case, it would be appropriate to talk about it right here. But rumors, I don't believe but about 25% of what I hear or have people tell me on a daily basis. But I will say this, accountability will be increased, no question about it. And accountability will be increased should we get a Republican majority. From top to bottom, not just personnel, but there are accountability issues, I think, that need to be addressed.
One of the things that's been discussed recently at the council meetings on several occasions is, in particular, hog happening, but also other events that cost money to the city, that invest in taxpayers. The city, for example, in the case of hog happening, spent $49,000. Add in the county expense, and the total expense to taxpayers was well over $50,000. How do you feel about spending money for events that essentially are fun, promotion, etc., but not necessarily absolute essentials for the city?
I think that that's a very good question, Wayne, because there is a fine line. As you've heard me say many times, I'm convinced the city can be ran more like a business. That is one area. When you're having a festival or if you build a park, there are areas that you maybe wouldn't do if you were running a business. But part of what our citizens do expect is to have festivals in the community. I think that makes the quality of life here in Lincolnton, it makes Lincolnton a better place to live. Now, I do believe, and it goes back to the accountability issue, there needs to be accountability concerning how much money is spent, how it affects our local businesses here in town. Is it a good thing for our businesses here in town, or is it a bad thing? And I think that's where a lot more research needs to be done for every festival, because our businesses are here all day, every day, paying taxes every year. So we need to be very sensitive to them. But we do, in turn, we do have to, I think we owe it to our citizens to provide entertainment here on Main Street. And it's really, all in all, and I'm a pretty good gauge of it because I talk to a lot of people, all in all, our citizens are pleased with what we do here in downtown Lincolnton with festivals and those type of things. But there is, on the other side of that, there is some concern with expense. I think the expense does need to be addressed. But to continue on with many of these events.
One of the objections that has been leveled at the hog happening, for example, is beer sales. We've had several people who have spoken against having beer sales, essentially from quasi-governmental agencies. DBA is not specifically governmental, but does receive government funding for its programs. How do you feel about that? Well, I know that you personally, I know you were raised a Baptist. I know that you're not, don't consume alcohol yourself. But how do you feel about that?
Well, you're exactly right. I do have an issue with excessive drinking. That is for sure, and I have been told that sometimes can happen at events like that. So I do think that the focus should not be on the sale of alcohol. And we do spend a lot of time speaking of the sale of alcohol, and you've noticed it in our meetings when that event in particular comes up. The revenue source is coming from the sale of alcohol, and that's the one that seems to be talked about. Well, there are some downside to that. I know that our police force has concerns with that particular event, making sure that we keep those of us that want to behave, they keep us safe. And one thing that I always think about when I think about our police force is all of us want to have these festivals and these activities. But if something bad happens, who's going to be there responsible to keep control? It's going to be our police force. And they will do an excellent job of it, no question about it. But I think we need to pay a lot more attention to what they're saying. They're the folks that have to, they're on the front line. They're the ones that have to break up the fight. So I think we've got to really pay close attention to what they're saying and then act accordingly. Bottom line answer to your question, I don't know the answer as to whether alcohol sales are a must or not a must, but I do think that it should not be focused around that. We have people come here that make award-winning barbecue from all over the Southeast. That's what we need to be focused on, because that is a big deal. The barbecue piece of the hog happening is a big deal.
We've been talking with Lincolnton Mayor John Gilliland, who is, of course, running unopposed in the November election. And I'm sure that you would love to hear from the voters if they have concerns that we've not expressed today and they would like to talk with you. If you would care, you can give them a phone number they can call to talk with you, or an email address.
Absolutely. My home phone number is 704-735-9221. And my email is in several different places, so I won't try to say that out. But email actually is probably a little better to get to me. As you know, Wayne, sometimes on the phone I get a little busy, but email is definitely the best. The easiest one is johngilland@gillandrealty.com.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to put my ideas out.
We're talking today with Mary Frances White, who is one of the candidates for the Lincolnton City Council in the November election. Mary Frances, you have been in the funeral home business for some years in Lincolnton, been involved in a lot of charitable and civic activities. What made you decide to run for City Council?
I have lived in Lincoln County all 60 years of my life. I love Lincolnton, and I want to be of service to the citizens of Lincoln County.
What do you consider to be the biggest issue that's facing the city of Lincolnton?
The contracts with the water, and also I'm sure the tax issue is going to come back up.
On the water situation, and you mentioned the tax issue, I assume you may be talking there about the question about the money for the 911 and animal control services.
Mm-hmm.
Some have said that they felt that the county is trying to double tax people in the city of Lincolnton for those services, which they say are county services. How do you feel about that?
I feel like if they are county services, county should take part and do their share and not tax the city of something that they're supposed to be taking care of.
The city has managed to keep its tax rate fairly steady for the last several years, but it is high by comparison to other cities in our area. What, if anything, would you do to change that?
First of all, I would have to get in there and research and look at the areas where we can keep it under control or find some way to maybe lower it.
One of the issues that has come up at recent city council meetings is about some of the extra activities that the city puts up money for. Hog Happening is one that has drawn some criticism because it cost the city about $49,000 to help stage that event. There are others that have cost the city some money. How do you feel about those?
My opinion with that is also goes back maybe to the county. I feel like when they have these events, the city employees have to clean up after all of these festivities of whatever they're having. And I feel like the county should do their share with that also. I don't feel like it's fair to the city to take care of the whole, not when it's a county, event. I feel like they should do their share in their part.
The city police department, for a period of time, I'm talking about the building now, not the officers, was a hot issue. Recently, it seems to have been put on the back burner. Do you see possibility of having a new police station anytime soon?
I don't see it happening soon with the issues that we're presently facing, such as the contracts with the water and 911 and animal control. I don't see it happening no way soon. I really don't.
There has also been an issue raised by some people about some of the traffic lights on city streets. The traffic signals on Water Street, for example, appear to be in bad shape. Those being on city streets, they're a city responsibility as opposed to a state responsibility. What, if anything, would you do about those?
If they're city responsibility and not state, then we should be able to find ways and means to rectify those. to rectify the situation.
You are the first African-American candidate for city council. Not only that, but in the history of Lincoln County, there has never been an African-American who has served in any elected position. Do you think that it's time that we had an African-American in office?
Honestly, I think it's past time. It's overdue. This should have happened many years ago. It's definitely time.
Mayor Francis, you obviously have considerable experience in business, and you have been named the Lincoln County Woman of the Year and so forth. As I mentioned before, you've been involved in charitable and civic work in the community. But you have no experience in government or serving on any elected board. What makes you believe that you would be the right choice compared to your opponent for city council?
I think that Mr. Devin Ryan is a fine fella. However, and I'm sure that there's some disagreement on some issues, and there's the issues of the traffic situation, and I feel that that needs to be studied and looked at for the safety of our people. And as opposed to him, I feel like there needs to be a new approach and a fresh voice and a concern. We have so many people that's concerned. The Afro-Americans are concerned. They really are not in tune with what's going on, and I feel like I can be a voice for them.
We've been talking with Mary Frances White, who is a candidate for city council in the November election. Thank you.
Thank you.
We're talking today with Jay Thomas, who is a candidate for the Ward 3 council position in the city election coming up in November. Jay, 4 years ago, you ran for the same position and lost by only a couple of dozen votes.
Yes, that's correct.
This time, of course, Carol Hebner, who won at that time, is not seeking re-election, so it's a fresh race with two new candidates, and that neither of you have served on the city council before. Before you ran as an independent, this time you're on the Republican ticket. What was behind the change to the Republican ticket?
Well, I was generally always a registered Republican until we moved to Lincolnton, and the folks down at the Board of Elections, when Kim and I went to register, asked how we wanted to register, and I said, well, we're Republicans, so that's the way we'll register. And they said, well, you know, most of the elections in Lincolnton are city elections are done in the primary because not many Republicans run for office. So they suggested that I file as unaffiliated so that I could vote in those Democratic primaries. So being a conscientious voter that wanted to help make a decision about what was going on, I decided to file as unaffiliated. And they indicated at that time that the only reason you wouldn't want to do that was if you wanted to run for office. And at that point, I had no intentions of ever running for office. But back 4 years ago, there was a group of citizens that came to me and asked me would I consider running for council. And I felt like that's a pretty good endorsement for, you know, where you are in life. And I sort of became enamored with the possibility of making a contribution to the city. So I decided to run, even though we knew it was going to be a challenge, you know, not getting those straight party votes 4 years ago. And I think that also played into my decision this time to switch back as a registered Republican, because that's sort of where my beliefs are. But to allow me to get those straight party votes, it was just too difficult to get elected as an unaffiliated voter. So you really need to be on one side or the other so that you get those straight party votes. And that's the answer.
One of the biggest issues that has faced the city recently, and the Republican Party has made a campaign issue of the garbage collection fee, which of course has been done away with now, no longer exists. One of the reasons that it was put in place, of course, was the amount of money that it would bring in. How will the city take care of the money that is missing from that garbage collection fee. Originally at $10 a month, it was $400,000. Now it's over $200,000 since the $5 fee was taken away.
Well, there's obviously going to have to be some adjustments to the way the city operates. I think there's things in the budget that we don't have to spend money on, that we've allocated money for various projects that can go towards paying down that obligation, if you will. And I think also there's a number of other efficiencies that can be gained in government. When I talk with people that are familiar with how the city operates, there seems to be a trend of, I don't want to say inefficiency, but it's not operating at maximum efficiency. And if we can get the city operating at maximum efficiency and utilize those tax dollars to the best advantage, we'll have more money to go towards things like trash.
Could you elaborate on that? Now, you said there are inefficiencies. Where, what departments, or what things would you consider that could be changed?
Well, I think it's it's just an overall mentality in the city that we've been doing things a certain way for so long. We're not looking at doing things, in business today, there's a number of different things like lean manufacturing, Six Sigma processes, where you go through and you analyze exactly every step of a process, whatever it be, signing up a new utility customer, for example, and you determine what parts of that process are necessary and what parts do we really not need. Okay? So we need to go through each and every department in the city. We need to do an analysis of how we do things and why we do things, and is it a beneficial action that we're doing, right? How can we streamline? One of the things I'm aware of is the utility department goes and makes changes. They install a meter somewhere, but that never gets communicated back to the billing office so that the bill can go to that new customer. There's a disconnect in the process, the way we're doing business. So we need to streamline, we need to focus, we need to make sure that we're only doing those things that are necessary, most efficient, cheapest way possible.
Your opponent has made an issue of the fact that you own a business in Gastonia, not in Lincolnton. Would you care to address that?
Well, I don't know why anybody would have an issue with that. The reason we're in Gastonia and not Lincolnton is when you go to start a business, there's a number of factors that you have to consider: lease rates, demographics, availability of space adjacent to other major retailers. I tried to find a space in Lincolnton. There was no space available that met the criteria of what we were looking for. There happened to be a space in Gastonia, low rent, great traffic, anchored by major retailers. I would have not been a good businessman had I not made that decision. We hope at some point in the future to bring our business to Lincolnton. We aim to do some other locations. Obviously, you want to be in your hometown, and we love Lincolnton. We want to be here. I wouldn't be in this race if I didn't love Lincolnton. So he can make of it what he wants. He's not a businessman.
One of the things that's come up in the discussions about the city's need for money is the water proposal. That, of course, there was one that was approved by the county but turned down by the city council, and they've since come up with another possibility of a contract, but so far the county has not reviewed that. And at the same time, there was also a couple of other potential contracts between the city and the county. One of those involving the Lincolnton Fire Department covering areas outside the city. I understand that has now been approved by both the county and the city. The other relates to the 911 services and the animal control services. And the county commissioners have insisted that the city would have to increase its contribution to those services to eventually as much as over $400,000 a year. There are those who have said they believe this is double taxation because city residents are also county residents, already pay county taxes and should receive the same services as people who live outside the city.
Well, you're exactly right. There's a number of citizens that do believe they're double taxed. I also believe that we're paying more than what we should. When we look at our tax bill, it's a fairly high tax bill for a small city of this size on both sides of the equation. Not only what we pay on the Lincolnton tax rate, but in the Lincoln County tax rate. I can tell you this. I know the county commissioners are doing what they believe is right for Lincoln County. If I'm elected to the city, I can promise you I'll work with those guys to the best of my ability to find mutually beneficial relationships. That's really what it's about. And when you're in business with somebody, it has to be a two-way street. There's a give and a take. And you have to come to an agreement where you both are winners in some respect, right? So I think right now it's a mentality of what's good for us and what's good for them. And that's not really the mentality we need to have. We need to be sitting down, talking together about what's good for us. And that's what I need to do.
One of the issues that was rather hot a few years ago, but seems to have been put on the back burner, is the need for a new police department. The old police department has been renovated several times over, and now the city is also paying rent for another facility for its detective division. Is there any hope that we will have a new police department anytime soon?
There's no question that we need to do something with the police department. Even 4 years ago when I ran, we took a tour of the facility and saw that it was deteriorating in some respects, that it wasn't optimized floor plan wise for what they needed to accomplish, what needs to happen. So I feel certain that we will have to do something with it. I disagree that it needs to be a $2 million police station down on Main Street here. I think we can do something for a whole lot less money that's just as nice or maybe even better. And certainly I think as the economy recovers and our sales tax revenues come back, I think we'll find ourselves in a better position to do those sort of things. But I wholeheartedly agree with what John and Devin proposed and helped to get the rest of the council to agree to, was to postpone any immediate action right now. So I think what they've done is a good temporary solution, but it's going to have to be addressed in the coming years, for sure.
One of the ways that the city had been suggested at one of the council meetings by the public is that the city cut some of its expenses in order to do away, for example, with the garbage fee, was the bonuses and other benefits that are being paid to city employees. How do you feel about that?
Well, I certainly do agree that, somebody made the statement that you can't solve an issue on the backs of the city employees, and there's really not enough to be done there to fix any one of these issues we're talking about, I don't believe. And I would say, as it relates to employee salary and benefits, you have to do a market study. In business, that's the way you determine how you pay your employees. You look at what your competitors are doing, you look at what people in your industry are doing, and you benchmark what those people are doing to determine how to pay your employees. The city of Lincoln needs to do the very same thing. We need to look to see what similar cities are paying their employees, what their total benefit package is, and we need to be competitive. You have to be competitive to keep quality people to get the job done, but you also have to strike a balance where it's fair to the taxpayer. So as it stands today, I can't tell you that I would do anything with the employee benefits. There has to be a lot of study and analysis done before any decision can be made regarding that.
We've been talking with Jay Thomas, who is running for City Council from Ward 3 in the November election. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. you, Wayne.
I hope you enjoyed our special edition. We would like to thank each candidate for participating and sharing their views and ideas. Be sure to watch for more upcoming videos. Thank you for watching. Until next time, I'm Jay Dellinger, Lincoln Herald.